Thanks again, Parker, for joining me today. To start us off, can you speak for maybe about a minute about who you are and what you're building?
Yeah, so my name is Parker Edwards. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Proxy. We are building AI to help home buyers go green. So to sum it up, we go work with people like home builders, real estate agents, mortgage lenders to help their home buyers become energy efficient. And we use AI to do it. My background, I spent a couple years in like the clean energy space. Before this, I was at a company called Vivint, and they do a lot of solar and smart home distribution, and that kind of fed into this. And yeah, my co-founder and I right now are in Lehi, Utah. We were out in San Francisco, but we just moved back a couple weeks ago. So it's good.
Cool. Great overview. And is this product like live right now? So people can go to the website and schedule a demo. Is that correct?
No, it is live.
Sweet. And you participated in HF0's summer cohort. Is that correct of this year? Yeah.
So we went in, I want to say in May or June, and came out in August. It was a 3-month program, and it was a super cool experience. It was super cool.
Cool. Why did you want to participate in a startup accelerator in the first place, and which programs did you consider?
So we considered a couple. We were actually originally in an accelerator out of BYU here in Utah. It was called the Sandbox program, and we ended up going to New York to go to a program called Z Fellows with Corey Levy. Mm-hmm. And we were kicking around the idea of, do we do YC or do we look somewhere else or even do an accelerator at all? And the story is kind of funny. So I'm sitting in my apartment where I am right now, and it's like just before midnight, and my co-founder Jacob gives me a call, and he says, "Hey man, we actually have an interview here in like a couple days out in San Francisco with a program called HF0." And at the time, I had never heard of it. I tried to look some stuff up online, and it was like a single-page website. And I'm like, man, I don't know what this is, but we flew out for literally like a 10-minute YC-style interview, and we had like zero expectations coming out of it. But yeah, we were kicking around like, do we do a program like HF0 or we do something like YC, or like go ahead and raise the seed round?
Yeah.
And super happy that we ended up moving to San Francisco and doing HF0. It was great.
Yeah. Can you tell me more about just like why that program though? Like what stood out about it? What were you looking for at the time?
So we wanted to be around other founders, obviously, that like had the same, I guess, mindset and goals as we did. I think HF0 is really unique in the fact that you actually live with the other 9 teams in a house. So it's like a hacker house in the middle of San Francisco. And so you literally like eat, drink, sleep, like work, like with these other founders, like 24 hours a day. And there's really nowhere else where you're going to be able to get that kind of experience. And then the partners are pretty amazing as well. So the 3 co-founders are Dave Fontenot, Evan Seitz Clayton, and Emily Liu. And yeah, they're incredible. So we jumped on a call with them, and like we were in. So it was good.
Cool. Can you talk a little bit more about that admission process? So I know on the website there's like a written application. It sounds like you flew to San Francisco for a 10-minute interview. Is there anything else in the admission process, or is that the admission process?
So the admission process is you apply online. They had a couple thousand startups apply, and then they do like a screening interview. Mm-hmm. And depending on how that screening interview goes, they'll fly out the top 100 teams out to San Francisco, and they'll do a 10-minute in-person interview. And then they'll let you know within the next week or two, like if you get in. Yeah, I can kind of like go into that interview process. So
yeah.
So I actually flew out 2 days early to go meet with a customer out in Sacramento. Mm-hmm. And then I got to hang out at the house the day before interviews, actually, which was pretty cool. There's another founder, Colton. He's working on 1,000 Birds. He was in this past batch. I ended up meeting him there. And then the next day, my co-founder came in and flew in for our interview. We ended up meeting Travis, who was in this past batch, and like a bunch of other founders. Mm-hmm. I literally like went in for this 10-minute like interview. It was super intense.
Yeah.
A core memory, I guess, from that was as we are standing up to leave, I literally don't think I had like taken a breath. It felt like in like 10 minutes. Like, I was talking so fast, and Dave, as I'm walking out, like comes up and puts his hand on my shoulder and says like, "Hey man, just like take a breath, like you're good." And yeah, if I had to like sum up like that entire process of like getting into HF0, it was just very unique.
Yeah.
We had never done anything like that before, but it was super cool.
Can you talk about some of the actual questions that you remember being asked during that 10-minute interview? Like, were they focused on your team? Were they focused on your product? Or what were some of the questions?
I think they were really mostly focused on our team. They were really interested in my background, coming like from this space at Vivint. They were pretty interested in like our initial traction, and kind of like where we were at. I'm trying to think of other things. I think, but definitely way more focused on the team. I know that one of their questions was, where do you expect to be by like the end of the batch? Yeah, they were very direct though. It was there was no fluff, put it that way.
Yeah. So. And one of the things that I was just looking through like Twitter accounts before this call, it seems like they index a little bit on like traction. I remember people asking Dave on Twitter, like, do you need traction to apply to like HF0? And he like strongly recommended it. Where most of the start, like it sounded like you had traction before going into that call because you were talking to a customer in Sacramento. When you think about like the other companies in the batch, did they also come in with traction? Were they pre-product, or where were they at when they entered HF0?
Some had traction, some did not.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of some of the other companies that had like really like impressive traction going in. There's a company called Smart Roof. Their founder, his name is Nathan. He had quite a bit of traction coming in. I think he actually had over $1 million like in ARR or in revenue coming in. There was definitely a couple other teams that like had built product or had a pretty good idea of what they were building. This batch was pretty unique though. In previous HF0 batches, from what I understand, a lot of those companies were pre-product, even some like pre-idea.
Yeah.
And I think even for this upcoming batch, there's like a ton of different companies that have significant traction.
Gotcha.
I think that's changing.
So they're moving a little bit further down the spectrum, maybe. Okay. Cool. And then wanted to talk about the actual program. You mentioned earlier, it's like eat, sleep, work with these founders, 24/7 type of thing. How's the program like actually structured? I know they bring in like speakers to come talk at the house. What else happens during the program?
Yeah. So the nice thing is that you have your own autonomy, I guess, to run your own process, which is nice. But there is a little bit of structure. So everything's taken care of when you move into this house. So laundry, food, gym memberships, everything is taken care of. And when we moved in, I'm trying to think of exactly how it was initially versus how it ended. Normally, like you wake up in the morning, you go get breakfast, like you go downstairs into what they call the hack space, and then you get to work. Every Friday, there's like Friday dinners, and they're big community dinners. So a bunch of people in AI or just in tech in general come and show up to these massive dinners. Right before them, we have Friday demo dinner, and all the founders pack into a room, and we just present what we worked on for the past week. And then afterwards, we have a speaker come. We had some pretty crazy people show up. We had Sergey Brin. We had Guillermo from Vercel. Max from Instacart. It was like one of the coolest like experiences. It was super cool.
Cool. That's awesome. And during the program, I guess like what was the most valuable piece of advice you received at HF0, and who was that from? Was it from a peer? Was it from one of the speakers? Was it from someone on the HF0 team? What was that advice?
Yeah. So Jacob and I, about halfway through. We didn't pivot, but we made just like a slight adjustment, I guess. To give context, we were super focused on new construction going in. So we were focused on getting relationships with home builders and like commercial contractors. And about halfway through the batch, we decided to do what we called like the moonshot idea, which was to make it so we could use AI on any home, anytime it's transacted, to be able to make it energy efficient. And there's a couple different things that went into that. And there was a specific, I guess, night where we were sitting in the library. They have like whiteboards, and the whiteboard was full. And Casey Caruso, who was a visiting partner, she was working on AI at Google before she was there. And she came in, and we started talking to her, and we're like, hey, like, what should we do here? Like, we have a really solid business, but there's this like moonshot idea of like, if we can do this, it would be freaking massive, but it's a big swing. And she told us like, just go for it. Like, if there's a bigger opportunity, like, pursue it. And I would say that that was pretty instrumental.
Cool. Yeah, it seems like she instilled that confidence to take that next step for you guys, which is awesome. So I was watching, there's like this video on Twitter of the demo day. It seems like it's a slightly different format than maybe other accelerators. And I think the one thing I noticed was it was just like a smaller crowd. I think it was like 55 of the top GPs. It's more intimate, less so than like, I know like YC or other accelerators. They usually invite like hundreds or thousands of people to some of these events. What did you think of that format in terms of a demo day?
Well, the pressure was on. We had 55 GPs in a room from like Andreessen, Benchmark, Sequoia, and it was wild. It was a super cool experience. I think what was really unique is what actually happened afterwards. So, I've never done a YC demo day, but I feel like I have a pretty good grasp on how it goes. You know, you go present for like a minute and a half, and that's about it. And if they reach out. With HF0, we had our presentation time. Everybody was in person, totally engaged. It was kind of crazy. Like, we have a photographer that was there. His name is Jordan. And he was just saying, like, even taking photos, it was crazy how many people were just like not on their phones. And I think that's because everyone's in person, right? So like saying kind of what you said, it's like super intimate experience rather than like over a screen. And then afterwards, you actually have an hour to set up a booth outside, and all the investors come up and they talk to you and they ask you further questions, and like you get your contact info. And that is a completely different experience than just like pitching. The dynamic completely changes. And it was a super cool experience.
Yeah. Can you talk more about that dynamic of how it changes?
Normally when you go and you pitch an investor, you are pitching them, right? And you can definitely feel that they are in charge. And I think at HF0's demo day, you got to kind of establish more of a like relationship rather than just, hey, I'm going to show up as a founder and pitch you. It's like, hey, like you actually came to the house where we've been living for 3 months. And the types of questions that you get asked are completely different than just what's your revenue? Like, where you in, a year, and like, what does your team look like? It's much more based off of what was your experience in the HF0? How did you grow? How do you think this is going to help you out in the future? And it was totally different than regular like pitching to a VC.
Makes sense. And I guess it's like a two-part question. One was like, were most of the startups in your batch successful in raising money on demo day? And then the second question is, was it really needed? Because I think HF0 gives you like quite a bit of money up front. So like, did startups in your batch actually need to raise money at demo day? Or did they have like enough runway where there wasn't too much pressure to like actually get money in the door right now, and they can like build relationships with investors, or use that demo day as like a way to build relationships and then raise down the road?
I think everybody's been pretty successful in raising a round. for the most part. And like I know that even with us, like we're in the middle of closing our round, and I'm trying to think about kind of like that first part. Definitely coming out of HF0, it's like the best time to raise, right?
Yeah.
You get to leverage demo day.
Yeah.
We held off for a little bit before we started like really diving in and like talking to investors. At demo day, we actually weren't even sure if we were going to raise. If you asked us on demo day if we were going to raise, we probably actually would have said no. But because of inbound interest, both on the VC side and from the customer side, like immediately after demo day, we decided like, hey, like we'll start taking meetings. And I think that's kind of how a lot of people felt coming out of that was, this is a really good time to raise. Could I wait a little bit? Yes, but it's always better to raise when you don't have to.
Yes.
And so I think a lot of the teams have kind of taken that approach.
Cool. And then HF0's value prop, or what they really sell, and you kind of alluded to this beforehand, by them taking care of like gym membership and laundry and food and housing and all this stuff, is speed. I'm kind of curious to get a better sense of like that for your own journey. So it seems like you came into the program with like a few customers. I guess like where were you at the start of the program, and then like where did you end up at the end of the program? Maybe if you could talk about some metrics or things that you want to accomplish during the program. Yeah.
So going into the program, we were really focused on providing a lot of value to the like supplier side of our marketplace, right? So how we work is we'll do like an energy analysis on somebody's house, and then we'll plug and play different clean energy products like solar, smart home, HVAC, heat pumps, etc. And then we'll connect them to fulfillment partners in our preferred network to do the actual fulfillment. And then after things are installed, we use AI to automate the filing for rebates and incentives on the customer home buyer's behalf. And our focus just completely changed. I think where the speed really came in is our efficiency in making changes was accelerated. So we had like really close users that we were working with when we came in. When we came out, we were almost at $2 million in like annualized revenue, which is a very big contrast, right? And I think it all comes down to like, if you work 18 hours a day, you are just going to be more efficient. And if you only work 10. So, also I think that there's a lot of stress with being a founder, just like living life and running a company. I don't think there's anywhere else in the world where somebody is going to be able to go and just focus on working on their startup and just like eliminate everything else. So I think to take the words out of Dave's mouth, HF0 goes and adds by subtracting, and definitely felt that.
Cool. And then what advice would you give to someone applying to HF0?
I would tell them to, let me think about that real quick. What advice would I tell them? Like pre-application, or have they gotten in?
Yeah, pre-application.
Pre-application.
Like, how do they increase their chances of getting in, basically? It's like, what should they be doing?
Okay, cool. I'll repeat it back to you. So, my advice to somebody before like applying or while applying to HF0 is to be like really genuinely yourself. I know that their decision-making process is way more dependent on the founder than it is on like where you're at as a company. Obviously it helps to have traction. It helps to have customers. Like those are all super important. But like really highlight your strengths as a founder. So to give insight here, like I am not technical. My co-founder is. And during the interview process, they asked a lot about like my ability to sell my sales background, and I just had to really focus on like what makes you unique as a founder on the application. So I actually didn't fill out the application.
Yeah.
But on the application, just like really highlight who you are. I don't have like the most impressive background. And my co-founder was working at a Series B startup here in Utah. So it's not like we're, former Facebook or Stripe employees or something like that.
Yeah.
But I think the more genuine and authentic you can be, the higher chance you have getting in.
Cool. And then let's do the second part. Like, what advice would you give to someone who got into the program to just like make the most out of the experience?
HF0 does a really good job of eliminating like unneeded distraction.
Yeah.
And my advice would be to be all in, 100%, all in, all about it. And then also I would say like really establish relationships with like the other founders in that batch. Yeah, like even right now, I talk to a couple different founders on like a weekly basis. Josh Payne from CoFrame, like Derek from Listening. I talk to quite a few founders and it's really cool because I think if you build the community inside the program, when you leave, that still exists. I think that's actually really unique about HF0 in YC, right? There's 300 startups and it's a little bit harder to know everybody in your batch. We literally lived with these people. So I would take full advantage of that.
Cool. And then last question, is there like anything I didn't ask about that you think is important to know for people considering HF0?
Yeah, I think that if you're thinking about HF0 versus another accelerator, if you really take the time to go into what is the value add of each one, there's something really unique about having people that are really invested in both you as a founder and you as a person. I think that I was asked or checked up on, you could say, like as a person, just as much as I was as a founder, like throughout the entire program, by Dave and Evan and Emily and Casey. And I don't think that really exists in the same way at other places. And we gave HF0 a shot when it was still early, right?
Yeah.
And now it's blowing up. And if you have the opportunity to go meet those guys, you'd be pretty dumb to not go take it. So that's my opinion.
Awesome. Love that. Cool. Thanks, Parker, for joining me today.